NCA party, federal registered party. All about true populism, true nationalism, putting our people first, Canadians first. That is our agenda to the core. The issues facing our country are coast to coast. They are not specific to one region of the country, one province. There's misinformation out there. There's people from certain provinces. It's all about them. For us, it's all about all Canadians. Big difference. We don't want to break up this country. We don't want to fragment this country. We want to unite this country under a platform of true populism, true nationalism, true beautiful Canadian nationalism, standing up for our sovereignty, our citizens, our workers, our borders, our way of life. We're going to look at Trump's speech today from Davos. I've already reviewed the speech. We're going to go through aspects of it. I thought overall it was a pretty good speech, but it didn't go into the specifics that we were hoping for. He kind of played it safe in our opinion, which is fine. He's got a lot on his plate. He's facing this insane impeachment trial right now, so we're going to cut President Trump some slack. We're going to go through the speech because there's a lot of information that we can mine out of it, and we can add on to what President Trump said. And the purpose is to help expand our thinking, your thinking. Leave your comments. But this globalism at Davos, this is all about global world order. Mistake not. That is their agenda. Global governance. Control over your lives. Control over your family's future. Dictating to our governments how our tax dollars are spent, what the policies are, what the migration intakes are. That's what it's all about. So this is, Trump's theme is beyond geopolitics. And this is everything we've been talking about. This image speaks volume. I went to look it up on the Davos site, and it's not there anymore, but it's pretty revealing. And it talks about 93 sovereign nations right now. And then they talked about the Paris Accord, and they talked about reversing depletion of those. These are some of the things international act together. But this is the true telling point of Davos. This is tied to the UN and all IMF, World Bank, you name it. This is the globalists 100%. And they say, quote, we need to move from geopolitics, international competition. What's wrong with competition? They're afraid of international competition. They want to move into some global communism, global tyranny of control. Note that there. UN Agenda 21, UN Agenda 2030. Look them up. They want to move from geopolitics, international competition to a default of consummate global collaboration. This is global world order. Nations are going to have to change. Nations are going to have to submit to the global world order. Give up their sovereignty, like Harper was on his hands and knees at the G20 in 2010, saying we have to give up our sovereignty to global interest. He's a complete sellout. The LibCon establishment has completely sold out to this agenda. That's why you Canadians at home are suffering. You are coming last. We're going to shift to the speech now. I'm going to go through aspects of it. But we'll start off right here. This is about 8 minutes in.
Short period of time, 12,000 new factories under my administration, and the number is going up rapidly. We'll be beating the 60,000 number that we lost, except these will be bigger, newer, exist. Years of economic stagnation have given way to a roaring geyser of opportunity. U.S. stock markets have soared by more than 50% since my election, adding more than $19 trillion to household wealth and boosting.
Okay, Trump is going on about the number of factories. He's done great work there in dealing with the outsourcing of companies, attracting investment, trying to bring all the business back to the United States. And he referred to the number of factories. Under Obama, there was like 60,000 lost, and now Trump's able to reverse that. We're going to shift ahead.
Centered entirely on the well-being of the American worker. Every decision we make on taxes, trade, regulation, energy, immigration, education, and more is focused on improving the lives of everyday Americans. We are determined to create the highest standard of living that anyone can imagine. And right now, that's what we're doing for our workers, the highest in the world. And we're determined to ensure that the working and middle class reap the largest gains. A nation's highest duty is to its own citizens. Honoring this truth is the only way to build faith and confidence in the market system. Only when governments put their own citizens first will people be fully invested in their national futures. In the United States, we are building an economy that works for everyone, restoring the bonds of love and loyalty that unite citizens and powers nations. Today, I hold up the American model as an example to the world of a working system of free enterprise that will produce the most benefits for the most people in the 21st century and beyond. A pro-worker, pro-citizen, pro-family agenda demonstrates how a nation can thrive when its communities, its companies, its government, and its people work together for the good of the whole nation.
And that was Trump's rebuke of these globalists. And he's totally on the mark with his agenda, because a strong nation state is the foundation for a strong global economy. Strong family unit, strong individual is the basis for a strong country. He's totally rebuked these globalists. They want global governance, control over your lives. And what's Trump is talking about? Patriotism, nationalism, having pride in your country. Competition is good. It doesn't mean you're isolated, you're working with other countries, but the focus is on your citizens. As he says, the highest duty of government is to its own citizens. And we don't have that in Canada. We haven't had that here for decades and decades and decades. Ever since Pierre Trudeau, we've been sold out to globalist interests. And what's at stake here is multilateralism versus unilateralism. And that's what Trump has been doing with his trade deals. Whether you like him or not, that's what he's doing. These are unilateral trade deals in the best interest of America, collaboratively with other countries. This is globalism versus nationalism. I'm going to get back to the video statement here. I'm going to go back to an earlier segment. I thought it was quite telling. He's talking about the feds now.
And even now, as the United States is by far the strongest economic power in the world, it's not even close. It was going to be close, but a lot of good things happen to us and some not so good things happen to certain other places. They're forced to compete, and we compete with nations that are getting negative rates, something very new, meaning they get paid to borrow money, something that I could get used to very quickly. Love of that. Got to pay back your loan? No. How much am I getting? Nevertheless, we still have the best numbers that we've had in so many different areas. It's a conservative approach, and we have a tremendous upside potential when all of the trade deals and the massive deregulation starts kicking in, which will be during this year, especially toward the end of the year. Those trade deals are starting to kick in already. The regulations are kicking in right now. And I see such tremendous potential for the future. We have not even started, because the numbers we're talking about are massive. The time for skepticism is over. People are flowing back into our country. Companies are coming back into our country. Many of you who I know are coming back in with your plants and your factories. Thank you very much. America's newfound prosperity is undeniable, unprecedented, and unmatched anywhere in the world. America achieved this stunning turnaround that the Fed has raised rates too fast and lowered them too slowly. And even now, as the United States...
And that was a reference to the Federal Reserve. He said they've raised the rates too fast and they've lowered them too slowly. So if Trump gets in 220, this will be really interesting, because there's a lot of chatter that he's going to go after the Federal Reserve, which many people would argue is the root of evil. And I should qualify what Trump's doing. Despite his economic success, there are limitations. The U.S. empire, if you will, is overextended. They have military bases all over the world. It's costing a lot of money. The federal debt in the U.S. is over $23 trillion now. Obama added $8.58 trillion. Apparently, Trump has added over $5 trillion in 4 years. The same is happening up in Canada. It doesn't matter which mainstream party gets in. They keep piling the debt on. Trudeau's added $94 billion in the first 4 years. Harper added over $120 billion. And Mulroney added over $300 billion in the 10 years, 11 years that he was in. See, this is a big problem. What they're doing in these economies, they're piling on the debt fiscally. Trudeau's doing it. Harper was doing it. They're suppressing the interest rates to keep the economies afloat. This is a dangerous game they're playing, because it's going to eventually explode. You can only add so much debt. Eventually it's going to give. This is very troubling. I'm going to shift further into this presentation of Trump.
Tomorrow we must reject the perennial prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse. They are the heirs of yesterday's foolish fortune tellers, and I have them, and you have them, and we all have them. And they want to see us do badly, but we don't let that happen. They predicted an overpopulation crisis in the 1960s, mass starvation in the 70s, and an end of oil in the 1990s. These alarmists always demand the same thing: absolute power to dominate, transform, and control every aspect of our lives. We will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country, or eradicate our liberty. America will always be the proud, strong, and unyielding bastion of freedom. In America, we understand what the pessimists refuse to see: that a growing and vibrant market economy focused on the future lifts the human spirit and excites creativity, strong enough to overcome any challenge by far. The great scientific breakthroughs of the 20th century, from penicillin to high-yield wheat to modern transportation and breakthrough vaccines, have lifted living standards and saved billions of lives around the world, and we're continuing to work on things that you'll be hearing about in the near future, that even today, sitting here right now, you wouldn't believe it's possible, that we have found the answers. You'll be hearing about it, but we have found answers to things that people said would not be possible, certainly not in a very short period of time. But the wonders of the last century will pale in comparison to what today's young innovators will achieve, because they are doing things that nobody thought even feasible to begin. We continue to embrace technology, not to shun it. When people are free to innovate, millions will live longer, happier, healthier lives. For 3 years now, America has shown the world that the path to a prosperous future begins with putting workers first, choosing growth, and freeing entrepreneurs to bring their dreams to life. For anyone who doubts what is possible in the future, we need only look at the towering achievements of the past. Only a few hundred miles from here.
So Trump went on there. This was a important point he was making about the apocalyptic threats, and the most notable one is coming from the globalists, and it's through the UN IPCC climate change fabricated existential threat. This is the doom and gloom, the apocalypse through this agenda, which is trying to force global world order. Be very cautious of this. We don't deny climate change. It's a natural phenomena. We do deny what's coming out of the UN IPCC. It is exaggerated, and there's a lot of evidence to show this. So don't get caught up in the doom and gloom of those agendas. And we believe these globalists are radical. They are tied to radical socialists. We already know about Soros, who's funding them. They're using the radical socialists to undermine the nation state and our educational institutions, suppress free speech. This is happening. We all know it. Censorship is going on. Trump did talk about it. He talked about inclusiveness of all Americans. He was referring to African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, where all of them have an opportunity. But what he didn't refer to was extreme inclusiveness, which we have in Canada, Europe, Australia, other countries. The extremity of that's coming in. This is important because remember, Trump put a 7-country ban on 7 countries from the Middle East in terms of immigration into the United States. Inclusiveness within limits is a good thing. Diversity within limits is a good thing. But when you take it to the extremes, extreme diversity, extreme inclusiveness, there are serious issues. And I'm going to play the last segment here.
This is our common mission for the future. Together we will make our nations stronger, our countries safer, our culture richer, our people freer, and the world more beautiful than ever before. Above all else, we will forever be loyal to our workers, our citizens, and our families, the men and women who are the backbone of our economies, the heart of our communities, and the soul of our countries. Let us bring light to their lives one by one and empower them to light up the world. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless your countries, and God bless America. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, thank you for your speech and congratulations for what you have achieved for your economy, but also for your society. We discuss here very intensively the question of inclusiveness, but all your politics certainly are aiming to create better inclusiveness for the American people. I want to thank you personally, particularly for injecting.
It's funny, the Davos chief there, he focused in on inclusiveness. But I have to stress, Trump wasn't referring to extreme inclusiveness. He's doing it in a very narrow context. In Canada, there's talk of inclusiveness, but we have discrimination, systemic discrimination against traditional Canadians. And we see this through the affirmative action legislation, federal job hirings. We see it to the pandering of migrants legal coming in, getting all the perks and benefits, while traditional Canadians are second fiddle. This is what's going on. Trump is doing the reverse. He's putting his people first. But it's not extreme inclusiveness. And it doesn't have the discrimination that we have up here in Canada. This is interesting here. This is on the Davos World Economic Forum. It shows how narrow-minded these people are running it. They're trying to equate a nationalism with isolationism. Partnership, interdependence, global world order can triumph over national. See, this is their agenda. But as Trump articulated, nationalism, populism is not isolationism. It's unilateralism. It's working from one nation to another in the best interests of your people. But they're trying to paint it as isolation. See, this is their agenda. They hate populist nationalists. They want to impose their global agenda on all of the world. This is the ultimate form of tyranny. This is another issue, which is something we got to watch out for, is digital surveillance. It's increasing. It's quite disturbing. And here's a quote. The point is, when you gather enough data on people, you get to know people better than you know yourself. We are at a point where companies or governments can hack millions of people, and that means they know my medical history, my personal weaknesses. This is a dangerous phenomena going on, and we need to address it. The mass surveillance. Canada has a mass surveillance infrastructure. There's mass surveillance going on in our country. Harper set it up. He threw billions. The Trudeau government has only continued that. This is a big issue and something NCA takes seriously. We can talk about freedom and liberty all we want, but how much freedom and liberty are you going to have when the government knows everything about you? When they're surveilling you? When they're censoring you when you go against them? Where is the freedom? There is a crisis of this. And this is something we need to make bigger issue about. This here is Danny Roderick. He's professor of international political economy out of Harvard. He's a visionary. He's done excellent work on the global economy and the importance of the nation state. Like NCA, he argues that a strong nation state is the foundation for a strong global economy. And what's happening? These globalists, the establishment in Ottawa, the Libcon establishment, they have completely sold out to multilateralism, global world order, liberal international order, whatever you want to call it. It's top-down dictatorial government. There's radical transformation going on in Canada. That is part of the agenda. Fortunately for people like Professor Roderick and NCA and others, President Trump and others, we are fighting back against this globalization, hyper-globalization, the radical transformation of our country. This is going on. We hope Trump gets in a second term. Maybe he will be able to deal with the Federal Reserve. We have our own banking issues. We're paying billions in debt service payments. The debt only keeps growing. The central banks print our money. They control our wealth. They charge us interest on the printing. This is going on. We need to address that as well. If Trump leads the way with the Federal Reserve, that will open the avenue for us to deal with it as well. Because right now we are stringed to these central banks. Mistake not. Please share your comments tonight. But this is the real issue we're facing in the world. Fear these multilateralists. Fear them. They're all about control, controlling your lives.